Okay, this is going to be a really interesting discussion, and one that's got a lot of subtext in between. Because today, we're talking about the Montreal Canadiens, we're talking about captain of the team, Nick Suzuki, and we're also talking about Rafael Harvey-Pinard. Now, I guess we should have started, actually, with Harvey-Pinard, considering this entire video is only coming because of what Harvey-Pinard said in the media the other day. But for Montreal Canadiens fans who are tuning into this video to hear the latest on the Habs, Harvey-Pinard's name is absolutely familiar to most of us, considering the fact that Rafael Harvey-Pinard was a former Montreal Canadiens prospect who found his way onto the team in limited capacities over the years. He had some ups, he had some downs, and inevitably found himself in Pittsburgh's organization for the 2025-2026 campaign. Now, I also wanted to say this. This is like totally irrelevant to the video topic at hand and Nick Suzuki and everything we're diving into, but Rafael Harvey-Pinard has an interesting reputation amongst some Canadiens fans as to being the reason why Montreal was not able to land Connor Bedard in 2023. You see, Harvey-Pinard in that season started playing for the main Montreal Canadiens team towards the end of the year. And this guy absolutely went on a tear. He had scored hat tricks, he had scored points and goals all throughout the time that he had spent in Montreal, and the Habs probably were a better team from it. As a result, they did rise up the standings a little bit, and they missed out on the lottery balls that inevitably gifted the Chicago Blackhawks the first overall pick. Montreal drafted 5th that year, they took David Reinbacher, the rest is history. Harvey-Pinard, over the next little while, wasn't able to replicate the 20 points in 34 games level of success he had had with the Habs in 22-23. And then, after spending more time lowering his production in the AHL, he found himself in Pittsburgh, where this season he had scored 39 points in 66 AHL Penguin games. The reason we're talking about Harvey-Pinard today, though, is because of what he went out there and said about Nick Suzuki. Take a look at this article posted by DonLisCoulisses.com's Michael Pettit. Here's what makes Nick Suzuki a good captain, according to Rafael Harvey-Pinard. The funny part is, when you think about good captains in the National Hockey League, obviously Bergeron, Crosby, Taves, these guys come to mind. Harvey-Pinard technically was playing under the Sidney Crosby captained Penguins team. He just did so for one game. That's it. Unfortunate that he wasn't able to replicate the 2 points in 3 games level of success that he had a few years ago, but still, Harvey-Pinard has some experience under names like Nick Suzuki and Crosby. In Montreal, there may have been excellent captains, but we can't say that Max Pacioretty and Brian Gionta made history with the club at this level. Nick Suzuki changed the game, demonstrating several very fine qualities. But what is it that makes him actually a good captain? Rafael Harvey-Pinard had something to say about it on the Les Meneurs podcast with Jeff Duran and Kevin Mon. The Habs Solomon fan website even wrote an article about it. This is the episode itself. This will be linked in the description, this episode of Les Meneurs podcast with Harvey-Pinard on the bottom there. Big shout out over to them. They get a long interview done with this guy. It is an hour and 20 minutes. They really shoot the crap with Harvey-Pinard. You gotta love it when NHLers take a significant amount of time out of their day to give us fans the content that we deserve. And big shout out, of course, to Jeff Duran and Kevin Mon for getting Harvey-Pinard on the show and carrying that conversation for an hour 20. When we think of Nick Suzuki, we don't see him as being very talkative, nor as the kind of captain who would shout very loudly in the room and who would throw sticks to get a message across. In fact, Suzuki preaches by example. Number 14 doesn't seem to talk much, but Harvey-Pinard says that when Suzuki does speak, it's not just for show. He never speaks without purpose, so his words carry more weight and importance. He is not necessarily going to yell at other guys, but he's a guy who will choose his moments to stand up in the locker room, Harvey-Pinard said. Below, you can see a video of the captain wearing a microphone during Game 7 against Tampa Bay. This, of course, was from last playoff run, and Suzuki is indeed in the locker room, just doing what a captain does, reading out the lines. Pettit in this article then says, I much prefer a captain who leads by example both on the ice and in practice. A habit of working hard, regardless of your skill level, proves a player can lead a team far more than just throwing sticks around. Saying the right things at the right time carries much more weight than demonstrating your rage, which isn't necessarily a bad thing since it proves that it's important to you. In short, we can say the Canadiens have a good captain on their hands. You know what's funny? When I read this and I think about captains who try to get their way or try to make their statement by throwing sticks around and yelling at guys, like, for whatever reason, my brain automatically jumps over to JT Miller and the New York Rangers. But then again, you know, JT is like so apathetic sometimes on the ice that you could debate that the opposite is probably true for him as well. Maybe he doesn't speak in the locker room and maybe he contributes to a negatively led leadership environment with that team. That's all speculation, though, coming from a salty Canucks fan who was disappointed with how the Miller saga ended in Vancouver. But Rafael Harvey-Pinard is going out there and saying some pretty good things here about Nick Suzuki, Montreal's captain who, as we are all familiar with, had a little bit of experience with this Canadiens team during the tenure of the previous captain, who was none other than Shea Weber. Nick Suzuki played in 2 seasons with the Montreal Canadiens before Shea Weber departed and inevitably retired. I mean, okay, the retiring was like not really immediate. He had a whole bunch of games in 2021, but then played 0 in the year after. That Stanley Cup playoff run, what a way to go out, man. Like, genuinely thinking about it, the way Shea Weber was a Montreal Canadien, the way that he became the captain after being acquired for PK Subban, initially failed to live up to the hype of the trade because PK was a $9 million Norris winning defenseman. Shea Weber comes in, he puts his head down, he does the work necessary, he puts up, he shuts up, and he just does what he needs to do. He earns the captaincy, and the rest of the Montreal Canadiens roster is able to build off of that. He's the guy that tells all the equipment staff, no, you don't put my stuff on the plane, I'll put it on the plane. We will put our stuff on the plane. Us, the players, y'all are not going to go out there and carry our stuff around. And the Montreal trainers are like, whoa, really? Like, Shea Weber's going to tell us not to do that anymore? Okay, great. And like, it just sets the foundation of what leadership means within the Montreal Canadiens room. And Shea Weber, being more of that quiet, silent leader type that was the captain of 2 NHL teams, had a significant influence on the room that Nick Suzuki was breaking into in 2019 and in 2020 and 2021. So to see Nick Suzuki, who by himself was already captain material in the OHL, have that sort of insulation upon his NHL arrival, it makes a ton of sense to me as to why Nick Suzuki has developed this strong, stern, speaks up where he's needed, captain-like mentality that Rafael Harvey-Pinard is going out there and describing. So with that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section. How do you feel about Harvey-Pinard's commentary on Nick Suzuki? Link in the description to the Les Meilleurs podcast, which has the Harvey-Pinard interview, excuse me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you have any memories of this dude? And if you're a Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, or Pittsburgh Penguins fan, how do you feel about Rafael Harvey-Pinard these days? He's got 1 more year on your team, so let's see what he does with it. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. And bye.